Hope everybody's doing well today. How am I sounding? I think I finally got this thing to work. Please just let me know. It's JB's Pokestop. What's going on? Brangus McGee received your package today. Sounding good. How good? Normal good or better than good? Like better than normal good. Guess I can turn my own audio on real quick. All right. Yeah, I think that's gonna be really well. Better than normal. Excellent. That's what I was going for. So many hours I put into watching these streams back, and I really was not a big fan of the sound getting muffled at times and breaking up at times. So I figured I'm gonna figure out the headset because I think I need a proper mic. Go. Lori, what's up, boo? The back is it's being weird today. It was fine this morning. Going from like sitting to standing hurts a whole bunch. Um, or I'm sorry, from prone, like completely laying down to standing up. I feel like my back gets stuck, but there's no pain per se. Like I'm feeling good. But yeah, like that laying down to standing up is what's starting to get to me. How's everybody? Adam Jones, it's good to see you. Katrina and Leighton, it's JB's Pokestop. How's it going? It is really, really, really good to see everybody. I was super excited for today, of course. I'm really into this story, and so I was excited to get back to it. As well as it was just a Monday, and it was a not a tough Monday. What's up, Brian? How's it going, Go Spencer? It's good to see you, brother. It was good to see you. Busting out the work headset to see if it'll translate a little better, just overall in the story. I think it's sounding a little bit good. So yeah, I'm excited, and we're gonna, as is tradition, solve the cube while we wait for everybody to come on in and join us. Story time. What? It is story time. Story time with Kev the Pokey Ghost. My next feat is going to be how I get the music playing with my headset on. We'll see if I can figure that out. But it is going good. I hope everybody is getting everything that they set out to get today. I did have a very important question for Miss Katrina and Leighton in the chat. And I know that my normal streaming days are Thursday and Saturday, and I was just curious which day is better for you guys. But I hope everybody is getting everything they set out to get, and I hope your polls were almighty. Hit 100 subs quietly today. Shh. Let's go, JB. Excellent job, man. That's only the beginning. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, too. Seeing how that is. I hope work doesn't take up a majority of it. But everybody go sub up to JB's Pokestop. He's doing his trade night tomorrow, as well as he does have a short on right now that you can win a slab, a nice Gyarados slab. So everybody go over, hit the buttons, sub up, and get ready for a great night. I appreciate you being here, bud, as always, and ready for story time. All right, let's get to getting. Gonna figure out all of our white pieces and get our white cross. No worries at all. And what's up, Lil Cubone? I did see him go live. Of course, I wanted to pop in there, but time just didn't line up today when it came to the stream start time and finishing up work. And almost got caught there too, but was able to get out at the reasonable time. So, and huge shout out to my coworkers and my coaches who allow me to get out as close to 10 p.m. as possible on Mondays so that I can read with all of you. Earlier than later, because it's not really bedtime story time when it's like close to midnight. So it's always a blessing when they are so willing and supportive to allow me to work earlier to be with you guys at night. All right. Let's get this puppy solved and getting back into the story. And man, is it a story. So essentially what's happening is there are some evil people led by the Gnome King that are currently digging through the desert between the lands of Ev and Oz, and they're digging underneath the desert to get to the Emerald City so that they can break through the ground and conquer it. That's about where we left our fabled story, but it's quite different, a little bit darker, and I'm kind of digging it. My guys are out west. Oh man, that's true. That's true. A majority of the streams that I watch are all out west also. All right, and that's solved. Just not oriented yet. Get that in there, and if at any time at all the stream starts to lag, or if I start to cut out at all, or if the headset starts to wob out, just let me know, and I will troubleshoot. Oh yes, and then Guff, the general, is going around and getting all the evil people of the fairylands. Nate! Hello, Nate. How are you? What's up, CBC? How are you doing, man? It's good to see you. What's going on, Nate? How are you doing tonight? Come to listen to me read. Hang out with the Ghost fam. It is really good to see you, son. I'm really, it was really good to have you in the stream on Saturday. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I just worked all day. Worked all day, and in order to get on nice and early, I gotta close up, and then 30 minutes later, I start streaming. So I'm glad you're doing. I'm glad you're doing well. We are reading The Wizard of Oz right now. I don't know how many of these you've come to, and or how many you've listened into. Got 7 people here already. I appreciate you guys getting ready to read with the Ghost. We're gonna give it another 2 minutes, just for everybody to get on in, and then we're gonna start with chapter 9. Yeah, we're actually on book. I think this is book number 6 now. And it's called The Road to the Emerald City. And the Gnome King is a mythical creature there that Dorothy has run into in the past. And he was owner of a magic belt. And this magic belt can do literally anything that you ask it to do. And so, long story short, Dorothy obtained the magic belt, and her and Ozma, the ruler of Oz, took it in their possession. Now he wants it back. Story time. Let me get comfortable. Get comfortable, Veggie. It's good to see you, Veggie. I hope you're doing well. I've got my coffee ready to go. What's everybody drinking tonight? I saw Coco in the chat earlier. Hope you are doing well, Veggie. If you like game shows, in fact, go sub up to Veggie Beast to press your luck. And CBC, correct me if I'm wrong, but did I see Deal or No Deal being advertised on your channel? Favorite characters, Humpty. Humpty was a good character. I did like him. I didn't know you read the story, Nate. Yes, on Wednesday. Excellent. So yeah, if you like game shows, Veggie Beast, CBC, uh, they are becoming quite the hosts themselves. Pat Sajak ain't got nothing on them. I'll say that. It is going to be great. Of course, I read them all, I think. Well, we were on the one where the Gnome King wants his belt back, so him and all the evil things of the fairylands of Ev and Oz are tunneling under the desert to get to the Emerald City right now. Pat who? Sajak, the guy that hosted Wheel of Fortune for 40 years? And I'm sorry if you can hear the coffee slurps. But we are at about 10, 11 minutes, so we are going to jump into our story and read the next 8 chapters of The Road to the Emerald City. Thank you all so much for showing up and getting ready to read. It's a Joe. Oh, I got you. Yeah, Pat who? I got you. I got you. Never heard of him. Yeah, right. Huh, what's his name? I want to say Bob Borker. And so, okay. That's what I'm kind of hoping that this whole stream is turning into is that ASMR. Nothing I like than just listening to a good story. And it's funny because I started reciting The Raven earlier today at work, and somebody was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's The Raven. It's just stuck in my head." And it's surprising how many times I've read it. I'm actually able to. It's actually imprinted on there pretty good. What's up, Antalgic? Ready me Betty by story time. I love that. I put on my headphones. There you go. Right in your ear. Get a campfire and some nature sounds in the background, and you got the mood. See, that's what I was aiming for, Nate, but the pickup won't pick up the audio when my headset is on and hooked up. So I have to find a way to get the music to overlay while you can hear me through my microphone. And I think I figured it out, but I didn't have time to test it before this stream. But you're right on track, son. That's exactly what I want to do. I appreciate all 9 of you being here. And how perfect. We are going to start with chapter 9, which is how the Woggle Bug taught athletics. Father, you summoned me. It is said that whenever the raven is recited, I am son. Really? Well, clearly you are my son. Cap Morrison. I appreciate that so much. I hope you have an amazing day at work today. Try not to work too hard. And yeah, I appreciate you popping in. Chapter 9, How the Wogglebug Taught Athletics. It did not take Dorothy long to establish herself in her new home, for she knew the people and the manners and customs of the Emerald City just as well as she knew the old Kansas farm. But Uncle Henry and Aunt Em had some trouble in getting used to the finery and pomp and circumstance of Ozma's palace, and felt uneasy because they were obliged to be dressed up all the time. Yet everyone was very courteous and kind to them, and endeavored to make them happy. Ozma, especially, made much of Dorothy's relatives for her little friend's sake, and she well knew that the awkwardness and strangeness of their new mode of life would all wear off in time. The old people were chiefly troubled by the fact that there was no work for them to do. "Every day's like Sunday now," declared Aunt Em solemnly, "and I can't say I like it. If they'd only let me do up the dishes after meals, or even sweep and dust my own rooms, I'd be a deal happier. Henry, I don't know what to do with himself either." Henry don't know what to do with himself either, and once when he stole out and fed the chicken, Bellina scolded him for letting him eat between meals. I never knew before what a hardship it was to be rich and have everything you want. These complaints began to worry Dorothy, so she had a long talk with Ozma upon the subject. "I see I must find them something to do," said the girlish ruler of Oz seriously. "I have been watching your uncle and aunt, and I believe they will be more contented if occupied with some light tasks. While I am considering this matter, Dorothy, you might take a trip with them through the land of Oz, visiting some of the odd corners and introducing your relatives to some of our curious people." Oh, that would be fine! Exclaimed Dorothy eagerly. I will give you an escort befitting your rank as princess, continued Ozma, and you may go and find some of the places you have not yet visited yourself, as well as some others that you know. I will mark out a plan of the trip for you and have everything in readiness for you to start tomorrow morning. Take your time, dear, and be gone as long as you wish. By the time you return, I shall have found some occupation for Uncle Henry and Aunt Em that will keep them from being restless and dissatisfied. Dorothy thanked her good friend and kissed the loving ruler gratefully. Then she ran to tell the joyful news to her uncle and aunt. Next morning, after breakfast, everything was found ready for their departure. The escort included Ambi, the captain general of Ozma's army, which consisted merely of 27 officers, besides the captain general. Once, Ambi had been a private soldier, the only private in the army, but as there was never any fighting to do, Ozma saw no need of a private. So she made Ambi the highest officer of them all. He was very tall and slim and wore a gay uniform and a fierce mustache. Yet the mustache was the only fierce thing about Ambi, whose nature was as gentle as that of a child. The wonderful wizard had asked to join the party, and with him came his friend the Shaggy Man, who was shaggy but not ragged, being dressed in his fine silks with satin shags and bobtails. The Shaggy Man had shaggy whiskers and hair, but a sweet disposition and a soft, pleasant voice. There was an open wagon, with 3 seats for the passengers, and the wagon was drawn by the famous wooden sawhorse, which had once been brought to life by Ozma by means of a magic powder. The sawhorse wore wooden shoes to keep his wooden legs from wearing away, and he was strong and swift. As this curious creature of Ozma's own favorite steed, and very popular with all the people of the Emerald City, Dorothy knew that she had been highly favored by being permitted to use the sawhorse on her journey. In the front seat of the wagon sat Dorothy and the wizard. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em sat in the next seat, and the Shaggy Man and Ambi in the third seat. Of course, Toto was with the party, curled up at Dorothy's feet, and just as they were about to start, Billina came fluttering along the path and begged to be taken with them. Dorothy readily agreed, so the Yellow Hen flew up and perched herself upon the dashboard. She wore her pearl necklace and 3 bracelets upon each leg in honor of the occasion. Dorothy kissed Ozma goodbye, and all the people standing around waved their handkerchiefs, and the band in an upper balcony struck up a military march. Then the wizard clucked up to the sawhorse and said, "Giddy up!" And the wooden animal pranced away and drew behind him the big red wagon and all the passengers, without any effort at all. A servant threw open the gate of the palace enclosure that they might pass out, and so, with music and shouts following them, the journey was begun. "It's almost like a circus," said Aunt Em proudly. "I can't help feeling high and mighty in this sort of turnout." Indeed, as they passed down the street, all the people cheered them lustily, and the Shaggy Man and the Wizard and the Captain General all took off their hats and bowed politely in acknowledgment. When they came to the Great Wall of the Emerald City, the gates were opened by the guardian who always tended them. Over the gateway hung a dull-colored metal magnet shaped like a horseshoe, placed against a shield of polished gold. "That," said the Shaggy Man impressively, "is the wonderful love magnet. I brought it to the Emerald City myself, and all who pass beneath the gateway are both loving and beloved." "It's a fine thing," declared Aunt Em admiringly. "If we'd had it in Kansas, I guess the man who held a mortgage on the farm wouldn't have turned us out." "Then I am glad we didn't have it," returned Uncle Henry. "I like Oz better than Kansas, even and this little wood sawhorse beats all the critters I ever saw. He don't have to be curried or fed or watered, and he's strong as an ox. Can he talk, Dorothy?" "Yes, uncle," replied the child, "but the sawhorse never says much. He told me once that he can't talk and think at the same time, so he prefers to think." "Which is very sensible," declared the wizard, nodding approvingly. "Which way do we go, Dorothy?" "Straight ahead, into the Quadling country," she answered. "I've got a letter of introduction to Miss Cuttenclip." "Oh!" exclaimed the wizard, much interested. "Are we going there?" Then I'm glad I came, for I've always wanted to meet Cutting Clips. Who are they? Inquired Aunt Em. Wait till we get there, replied Dorothy with a laugh. Then you'll see for yourself. I've never seen the Cutting Clips, so I can't exactly explain 'em to you. Once freed of the Emerald City, the Sawhorse dashed away at a tremendous speed indeed. He went so fast that Aunt Em had worked hard to catch her breath, and Uncle Henry held fast to the seat of the red wagon. Gently, gently, my boy, called the Wizard, and at that the Sawhorse slackened his speed. What's wrong? Asked the animal, slightly turning his wooden head to look at the party with one eye, which was a knot of wood. Why, we wish to admire the scenery, that's all, answered the Wizard. Some of your passengers, added the Shaggy Man, have never been out in the Emerald City before. Out of the Emerald City before, and the country's all new to them. If you go too fast, you'll spoil all the fun, said Dorothy. There's no hurry. Very well. It is all the same to me, observed the Sawhorse, and after that he went at a more moderate pace. Uncle Henry was astonished. How can a wooden thing be so intelligent? He asked. Why, I gave him some sawdust brains the last time I fitted his head with the new ears, explained the Wizard. The sawdust was made from hard knots, and now the Sawhorse is able to think out any knotty problem he meets with. I see, said Uncle Henry. I don't, remarked Aunt Em, but no one paid any attention to this statement. Before long they came to a stately building that stood upon the green plain, with some handsome shade trees grouped here and there. What is that? Asked Uncle Henry. That, replied the Wizard, is the Royal Athletic College of Oz, which is directed by Professor H.M. Wogglebug T.E. Let's stop and make a call, suggested Dorothy. So the Sawhorse drew up in front of the great building, and they were met at the door by the learned Wogglebug himself. He seemed fully as tall as the Wizard, and was dressed in a red and white checked vest and a blue swallow-tailed coat, and had a yellow knee breeches and purple silk stockings upon his slender legs. A tall hat was jauntily set upon his head, and he wore spectacles over his big bright eyes. Welcome, Dorothy, said the Wogglebug, and welcome to all your friends. We are indeed pleased to receive you at this great temple of learning. I thought it was an athletic college, said the Shaggy Man. It is, my dear sir, answered the Wogglebug proudly. Here it is that we teach the youth of our great land scientific college athletics in all their purity. Don't you teach them anything else? Asked Dorothy. Don't they get any reading, writing, arithmetics? Oh, yes, of course. They get all those and more, returned the professor. But such things occupy little of their time. Please follow me, and I will show you how my scholars are usually occupied. This is the class hour, and they are all busy. They followed him to a big field back of the college building where several hundred young Ozites were at their classes. In one place they played football, in another baseball, some played tennis, some golf. Some were swimming in a big pool upon the river which wound through the grounds. Several crews in racing boats were rowing with great enthusiasm. Other groups of students played basketball and cricket, while in one place a ring was roped in to permit boxing and wrestling by an energetic youths. All the collegians seemed busy, and there was much laughter and shouting. This college, said Professor Wogglebug complacently, is a great success. Its educational value is undisputed, and we are turning out many great and valuable citizens every year. But when do they study? Asked Dorothy. Study? Said the Wogglebug, looking perplexed at the question. Yes, when do they get their arithmetic and geography and such things? Oh, they take doses of those every night and morning, was the reply. What do you mean, doses? Dorothy inquired wonderingly. Why, we use the newly invented school pills made by your friend the Wizard. These pills have found to be very effective, and they save a lot of time. Please step this way, and I will show you our laboratory of learning. He led them to a room in the building where many large bottles were standing in rows upon shelves. These are the algebra pills, said the professor, taking down one of the bottles. One at night, on retiring, is equal to 4 hours of study. Here are the geography pills, one at night and one in the morning. In this next bottle are the Latin pills, one 3 times a day. Then we have the grammar pills, one before each meal, and the spelling pills, which are taken whenever needed. Your scholars must have to take a lot of pills, remarked Dorothy thoughtfully. How do they take them? In applesauce? No, my dear, they are sugar coated and are quickly and easily swallowed. I believe the students would rather take the pills than study, and certainly the pills are a more effective method. You see, until these school pills were invented, we wasted a lot of time in study that may now be better employed in practicing athletics. Seems to me the pills are a good thing, said Omby Amby, who remembered how it used to make his head ache as a boy to study arithmetic. They are, sir, declared the Wogglebug earnestly. They gave us an advantage over all other colleges, because at no loss of time our boys become thoroughly conversant with Greek and Latin, mathematics and geography, grammar and literature. You see, they are never obliged to interrupt their games to acquire lesser branches of learning. That's a great invention, I'm sure, said Dorothy, looking admiringly at the wizard, who blushed modestly at the praise. We live in the age of progress, announced Professor Wogglebug pompously. It is easier to swallow knowledge than to acquire it laboriously from books. Is it not so, my friends? Some folks can swallow anything, said Aunt Em, but to me it seems too much like taking medicine. Young men in college always have to take their medicine one way or another, observed the wizard with a smile. And as our professor says, these school pills have proved to be a great success. One day, while I was making them, I happened to drop one of them, and one of Bellina's chickens gobbled it up. A few minutes afterward, this chick got upon the roost and recited "The Boy Who Stood on the Burning Deck" without making a single mistake. Then it recited "The Charge of the Light Brigade," and afterwards "Excelsior." You see, the chicken had eaten the eloquation pill. Eloquation pill. They now bade goodbye to the professor and thanked him for his kind reception, mounted again into the red wagon, and continued on their journey. Well, that was the end of chapter 9. I don't really care for how it ended, just like, okay, let's get in the wagon and go. Hannah, how's it going? Alec Longoria, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Claire C., how are you? Gotta go right quick, be right back. No worries, Nate. EDF, what's going on, fam? How are you doing? Everybody still hear me okay? And for those that frequent the stream, am I more audible? It's good to see you, Claire. It's good to see you, Hannah. Anybody else want some of these school pills? You know, take the arithmetic pills and the mathematic. I'd take some mathematic pills. That's what I would take. Spelling. See, I don't know if I'm like really good at spelling or if spell check has just made me think I'm really good at spelling. Got 14 likes already. Really appreciate you guys. And we are going to get into chapter 10, which is how the Cutting Clips lived. Cutting Clips. Sounds like a name of a barber shop that you would see on the side of the road, Cutting Clips. All right. How the Cutting Clips lived. The travelers had taken no provisions with them because they knew that they would be welcomed wherever they might go in the land of Oz, and that the people would feed and lodge them with genuine hospitality. So about noon they stopped at a farmhouse and were given a delicious luncheon of bread and milk, fruits and wheat cakes with maple syrup. After resting a while and strolling through the orchards with their host, a round, jolly farmer, they got into the wagon and again started the sawhorse along the pretty, winding road. There were signposts at all corners, and finally they came to one which read, "Take this road to the Cutting Clips." There were also a hand pointing in the right direction, so they turned the sawhorse that way and found it a very good road, but seemingly little traveled. "I've never seen the Cutting Clips before," remarked Dorothy. "Nor I," said the Captain General. "Nor I," said the Wizard. "Nor I," said Bellina. I've hardly been out of the Emerald City since I arrived in this country, added the Shaggy Man. Why, none of us had been there, then, exclaimed the little girl. I wonder what the cut and clips are like. We shall soon find out, said the wizard with a sly laugh. I've heard they are rather flimsy things. The farmhouses became fewer as they proceeded, and the path was at times so faint that the sawhorse had to work hard to keep on the road. The wagon began to jounce, too, so they were obliged to go slowly. After a somewhat wearisome journey, they came to a sight of a high wall, painted blue with pink ornaments. This wall was circular and seemed to enclose a large space. It was so high that only the tops of the trees could be seen above it. The path led up to the small door in the wall, which was closed and latched. Upon the door was a sign in gold letters reading as follows: Visitors are requested to move slowly and carefully, and to avoid coughing or making any breeze or draught. That's strange, said the Shaggy Man, reading the sign out loud. Who are the Cut and Clips, anyhow? Why, they're paper dolls, answered Dorothy. Didn't you know that? Paper dolls? Then let's go somewhere else, cried Uncle Henry. We're all too old to play with dolls, Dorothy. But these are different, declared the girl. They're alive. Alive? Gasped Aunt Em in amazement. Yes, let's go in, said Dorothy. So they all got out of the wagon, since the door in the wall was not big enough for them to drive the sawhorse and wagon through it. You stay here, Toto, commanded Dorothy, shaking her finger at the little dog. You're so careless that you might make a breeze if I let you inside. Toto wagged his tail as if disappointed at being left behind, but he made no effort to follow them. The wizard unlatched the door, which opened outward, and they all looked eagerly inside. Just before the entrance was drawn up a line of tiny soldiers with uniforms, brightly painted, and paper guns upon their shoulders. They were exactly alike from one end of the line to the other, and were all cut out of paper and joined together in the centers of their bodies. As the visitors entered the enclosure, the wizard let the door swing back into place, and at once the line of soldiers tumbled over, fell flat upon their backs, and lay fluttering around on the ground. Hi there, called one of them. What do you mean by slamming the door and blowing us over? I beg your pardon, I'm sure, said the wizard regretfully. I didn't know you were so delicate. We are not delicate, retorted another soldier, raising his head from the ground. We are strong and healthy, but we can't stand droughts. May I help you up? Asked Dorothy. If you please, replied the end soldier, but do it gently, little girl. Dorothy carefully stood up the line of soldiers, who first dusted their painted clothes and then saluted their visitors with their paper muskets. From the end, it was easy to see that the entire line had been cut out of paper, although from the front the soldier looked rather solid and imposing. I have a letter of introduction from Princess Ozma to Miss Cuttenclip, announced Dorothy. Very well, said the end soldier, and blew upon a paper whistle that hung around his neck. At once the paper soldier in a captain's uniform came out of a paper house nearby and approached the group at the entrance. He was not very big, and he walked rather stiffly and uncertainly on his paper legs. But he had a pleasant face, with very red cheeks and very blue eyes, and he bowed so low to the strangers that Dorothy laughed, and the breeze from her mouth nearly blew the captain over. He wavered and struggled and finally managed to remain on his feet. Take care, miss, he said warningly. You're breaking the rules, you know, by laughing. Oh, I didn't know that, she replied. To laugh in this place is nearly as dangerous as to cough, said the captain. You'll have to breathe very quietly, I assure you. We'll try to, promised the girl. May we see Miss Cuttenclip, please? You may, promptly returned the captain. This is one of her reception days. Be good enough to follow me. He turned and led the way up the path, and as they followed slowly, because the paper captain did not move very swiftly, they took the opportunity to gaze around them at this strange paper country. Beside the path were paper trees, all cut out very neatly and painted in brilliant green color. And back of the trees were rows of cardboard houses painted in various colors, but most of them having green blinds. Some were large and some small, and in front yards were beds of paper flowers, quite natural in appearance. Over some of the porches, paper vines were twined, giving them a cozy and shady look. As the visitors passed along the streets, a good many paper dolls came to the doors and windows of their houses to look at them curiously. These dolls were nearly all the same height, but were cut into various shapes, some being fat and some lean. The girl dolls wore many beautiful costumes of tissue paper, making them quite fluffy, but their heads and hands were no thicker than the paper of which they were made. Some of the paper people were on the street, walking along or congregated in groups and talking together. But as soon as they saw the strangers, they all fluttered into the houses as fast as they could go, so as to be out of danger. "Excuse me if I go edgewise," remarked the captain as they came to a slight hill. "I can get along faster that way if not flutter so much, and not flutter so much." "That's all right," said Dorothy. "We don't mind how you go, I'm sure." At one side of the street was a paper pump, and a paper boy was pumping paper water into the paper pail. The yellow hen happened to brush against this boy with her wing, and he flew into the air and fell into a paper tree, where he stuck until the wizard gently pulled him out. At the same time, the pail went into the air, spilling the paper water, while the paper pump bent nearly double. "Goodness me," said the hen. "If I should flap my wings, I believe I'd knock over the whole village." "Then don't flop them, please don't," entreated the captain. "Miss Cuttenclip would be very distressed if her village was spoiled." "Oh, I'll be careful," promised Billina. "Are not all these paper girls and women named Miss Cuttenclips?" inquired Ambiambi. "No, indeed," answered the captain, who was walking better since he began to move edgewise. "There is but one Miss Cuttenclip, who is our queen, because she made us all. These girls are Cuttenclips, to be sure, but their names are Emily, Polly, and Sue, and Betty, and such things. Only the queen is called Miss Cuttenclip." "I must say that this place beats anything I've ever heard of," observed Aunt Em. "I used to play with paper dolls myself and cut 'em out, but I never thought I'd ever see such things alive." "I don't see as any more curious than hearing hens talk," returned Uncle Henry. "You're likely to see many queer things in the land of Oz, sir," said the wizard. "But a fairy country is extremely interesting when you get used to being surprised." "Here we are," called the captain, stopping before a cottage. This house was made of wood, and was remarkably pretty in design. In the Emerald City it would have been considered a tiny dwelling, indeed, but in the midst of this paper village it seemed immense. Real flowers were in the garden, and real trees grew beside it. Upon the front door was a sign reading, "Miss Cuttenclip." Just as they reached the porch, the front door opened, and a little girl stood before them. She appeared to be about the same age as Dorothy, and smiling upon her visitors, she said sweetly, "You are welcome." All the party seemed relieved to find that here was a real girl of flesh and blood. She was very dainty and pretty, and stood there welcoming them. Her hair was of golden blonde, and her eyes turquoise blue. She had rosy cheeks and lovely white teeth. Over her simple white lawn dress she wore an apron with pink and white checks, and in one hand she held a pair of scissors. "May we see Miss Cuttenclip, please?" asked Dorothy. "I am Miss Cuttenclip," was the reply. "Won't you come in?" She held the door open while they all entered a pretty sitting room that was littered with all sorts of paper, some stiff, some thin, and some tissue. The sheets and scraps were of all colors. Upon the table were paints and brushes, while several pair of scissors of different sizes were laying about. "Sit down, please," said Miss Cuttenclip, clearing the paper scraps off some of the chairs. "It is so long since I've had any visitors that I am not properly prepared to receive them. But I am sure you will pardon my untidy room, for this is my workshop." "Do you make all the paper dolls?" inquired Dorothy. "Yes, I cut them out with my scissors and paint their faces and some of the costumes. It is very pleasant work. I am happy making my paper village grow." "But how do the paper dolls happen to be alive?" asked Aunt Em. "The first dolls I made were not alive," said Miss Cuttenclip. "I used to live near the castle of the great sorceress named Glinda the Good, and she saw my dolls and said they were very pretty. I told her I thought I would like them better if they were alive, and the next day the sorceress brought me a lot of magic paper. 'This is live paper,' she said, 'and all dolls you cut out of it will be alive, and able to think and talk, and when you have used it all up, come to me and I will give you more.'" Of course, I was delighted with this present, continued Miss Cuttenclip, and at once set to work and made several paper dolls, which, as soon as they were cut out, began to walk around and talk to me. But they were so thin that I found that any breeze would blow them over and scatter them dreadfully. So Glenda found this lonely place for me where few people ever come. She built a wall to keep any wind from blowing away my people, and told me I could build a paper village here and be its queen. That is why I came here and settled down to work and started the village you now see. It was many years ago that I built the first houses, and I've kept pretty busy and made my village grow finely. And I need not tell you that I am very happy in my work. Many years ago, exclaimed Aunt Em. Why, how old are you, child? I never kept track of the years, said Miss Cuttenclip, laughing. You see, I don't grow up at all. I stay just the same as I was when I first came here. Perhaps I'm older than even you are, madam. But I couldn't say for sure. They looked at the lovely little girl wonderingly, and the wizard asked, What happens to your paper village when it rains? It does not rain here, replied Miss Cuttenclip. Glenda keeps all the rainstorms away, so I never worry about my dolls getting wet. But now, if you will come with me, I will give you the. It will give me pleasure to show you over my paper kingdom. Of course, you must go slowly and carefully to avoid making any breeze. They left the cottage and followed their guide through the various streets of the village. It was indeed an amazing place. When one considered that it was all made with scissors, and the visitors were not only greatly interested, but full of admiration for the skill of little Miss Cuttenclip. In one place, a large group of especially nice paper dolls assembled to greet their queen, whom it was easy to see they loved dearly. These dolls marched and danced before the visitors, and then they all waved their paper handkerchiefs and sang in sweet chorus a song called The Flag of Our Native Land. At the conclusion of the song, they ran up a handsome paper flag on a tall flagpole, and all the people of the village gathered around to cheer as loudly as they could, although, of course, their voices were not especially strong. Miss Cuttenclip was about to make her subjects a speech in reply to this patriotic song when the Shaggy Man happened to sneeze. He was a very loud and powerful sneezer at any time, and he had tried hard to hold in his sneeze that when it suddenly exploded the result was terrible. The paper dolls were mowed down by dozens and flew and fluttered in wild confusion in every direction, tumbling this way and that and getting more or less wrinkled and bent. A wail of terror and grief came from the scattered throng, and Miss Cuttenclip exclaimed, dear me, and hurried at once to rescue her overturned people. Oh, Shaggy Man, how could you? Asked Dorothy reproachfully. I couldn't help it. Really, I couldn't, protested the Shaggy Man, looking quite ashamed. And I had no idea it took so little to upset these paper dolls. So little, said Dorothy. Why, it was most as bad as Kansas Cyclone. And then she helped Miss Cuttenclip rescue the paper folk and stand them on their feet again. Two of the cardboard houses had also tumbled over, and the little queen said she would have to repair them and paste them together before they could be lived in again. And now, fearing they might do more damage to the flimsy paper people, they decided to go away. But first they thanked Miss Cuttenclip so warmly for her courtesy and kindness to them. Any friend of Princess Ozma is always welcome here, unless he sneezes, said the Queen, with the rather severe look at the Shaggy Man who hung his head. I like to have visitors admire my wonderful village, and I hope you will call again. Miss Cuttenclip herself led them to the door in the wall, and as they passed through the street, the paper dolls peeped at them half fearfully from the doors and windows. Perhaps they will never forget the Shaggy Man's awful sneeze, and I am sure they were all glad to see the meat people go away. Rafa, how's it going, fam? Coming in with the two. Hey, y'all. Hey, Kev. How are you doing tonight, brother? I hope you're doing well. Darker Bunnies, how are you doing? Dozing off. Good night, Lori. Sleep well. I appreciate you being here. 806 subs. Let's go. I appreciate you guys. The Exiled Collector. How are you doing? It's good to see you. Ryan Tran, newbie. It is. Yo, what's up? What's up, Kev? How's it going? WTF popping in. How are you doing, WTF? I saw you join a member of the Spirit fam, man. I appreciate you. Wonderful night, man. I missed a lot. I missed a lot. I apologize, y'all. It is really good to see you all. Larry, Rafa, appreciate you, Rafa. I am doing good as well. I'm doing good as well. Monday night, we made a decision, I would say about a good 6 months ago, to try to. Has it been that long? I guess so. 19 episodes. Okay, about 4 months. But I wanted to read to people, and I realized not everything was in the public domain. And so we had to go back in time and find books that were written way long ago. So we're reading through the Wizard of Oz series right now by Frank L. Baum. I didn't realize there was about 15 books in that series. And the community decided Monday night at the end of the day was probably the best time for story time. So as much as Pokemon is our life, this is the one stream a week that we just sit, chill, read, and just relax together. So really appreciate you popping in and joining up. Um, we do stream on Thursdays and Saturdays as well. A little more exciting with the cards and whatnot, but this is something that I've always wanted to do, and you all have given me that platform to do it. You know what, Rafa? I actually got a notice today saying it'll be here on Tuesday, and I am really excited for it, man, and super grateful. You have no idea. Can't wait to get into it. Yeah, can't wait to get into it, man. I really appreciate you. Brangus McGee got your package today. Looking forward to that as well. And appreciate all of you being here. 13 of you in here? Let's go. So I will let you know as soon as I receive it, man. I'm happy to have you here, Kev. As we get into chapter 11, how the general met the first and foremost. Now we're going to transition and go to the bad guys because we're following the bad guys too. What's up, Stafford? How you doing tonight, fam? Hope you and the missus are doing wonderful. So we're going to go back to Guff, I believe, and the Gnome King and see what they're up to, digging under the desert to the Emerald City of Oz, which I hope they're stopped. On leaving the Growlywogs, General Guff had to recross the Ripple Lands, and he did not find it a pleasant thing to do. Perhaps having his whiskers pulled out one by one and being used as a pincushion for the incoherent amusement of a good-natured jailer had not improved the quality of Guff's temper, for the old gnome raved and raged at the recollection of the wrongs he had suffered, and vowed to take vengeance upon the Growlywogs after he had used them for his purpose and Oz had been conquered. He went on in this furious way until he was half across the Ripple Land. Then he became seasick, and the rest of the way this naughty gnome was almost as miserable as he deserved to be. But when he reached the plains again and the ground was firm under his feet, he began to feel better. And instead of going back home, he turned directly west. A squirrel, perched in a tree, saw him take this road and called to him warningly, "Look out!" But he paid no attention. An eagle paused in its flight through the air to look at him wonderingly and say, "Look out!" But on he went. No one can say that Guff was not brave, for he had determined to visit those dangerous creatures in phantasm and fanphasm. He had determined to visit those dangerous creatures, the phanphasms, who resided upon the very top of the dreaded mountain of Fantastico. The phanphasms were herbs, so dreaded by mortals and immortals alike that no one had ever neared their mountain home for several thousand years. Yet General Guff them, uh, hoped to induce them to join in his proposed warfare against the good and happy people of Oz. Guff knew very well that the phanphasms would be almost as dangerous as the gnomes, and they would do to the Ozites. But he thought himself so clever that he believed he could manage these strange creatures and make them obey him. and there was no doubt at all that if he could enlist the service of the Phanfasms, their tremendous power, united to the strength of the Growlywogs and the cunning of the Whimsies, could doom the land of Oz to absolute destruction. So the old gnome climbed the foothills and trudged along the wild mountain paths until he came to a big gully that encircled the mountain of Fantastico and marked the boundary line of the dominion of the Phanfasms. This gully was about a third of the way up to the mountain, and it was filled to the brim with red-hot molten lava in which swam fire serpents and poisonous salamanders. The heat from this mass and its poisonous smell were both so unbearable that even birds hesitated to fly over the gully, but circled around it. All living things kept away from the mountain. Now, Guff had heard, during his long lifetime, many tales of these dreaded phantasms, so he had heard of this barrier of melted lava. And also, he had been told that there was a narrow bridge that spanned it in one place. So he walked along the edge until he found the bridge. It was a single arch of gray stone, and laying flat upon the bridge was a scarlet alligator, seemingly fast asleep. When Guff stumbled over the rocks and approaching the bridge, the creature opened its eyes, from which tiny flames shot in all directions. And after looking at the intruder very wickedly, the scarlet alligator closed its eyelids again and lay still. Guff saw there was no room for him to pass the alligator on the narrow bridge, so he called out to it, "Good morning, friend. I don't wish to hurry you, but please tell me if you are coming down or going up." "Neither," snapped the alligator, clicking his cruel jaws together. The general hesitated. "Are you likely to stay there long?" he asked. "A few 100 years or so," said the alligator. Guff softly rubbed the end of his nose and tried to think of what to do. "Do you know whether the first and foremost phantasm of Fantastico is at home or not?" He presently inquired. "I expect he is, seeing as he is always at home," replied the alligator. "Ah, who is that coming down the mountain?" asked the gnome, gazing upward. The alligator turned to look over his shoulder, and at once Guff ran to the bridge and leapt over the sentinel's back before it could turn back again. The scarlet monster made a snap at the gnome's left foot, but missed it by fully an inch. "Aha!" laughed the general, who was now on the mountain path. "I fooled you that time." "So you did, and perhaps you fooled yourself," retorted the alligator. "Go up the mountain if you dare, and find out what the first and foremost will do to you." "I will," declared Guff boldly, and on he went, up the path. At first the scene was wild enough, but gradually it grew more and more awful in appearance. All the rocks had the shapes of frightful beings, and even the tree trunks were gnarled and twisted like serpents. Suddenly there appeared before the gnome a man with the head of an owl. His body was hairy like that of an ape, and his only clothing was a scarlet scarf twisted around his waist. He bore a huge club in his hand, and his round owl eyes blinked fiercely upon the intruder. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, threatening Guff with his club. "I've come to see the first and foremost phantasm of Fantastico," replied the general, who did not like the way this creature looked at him, but still was not afraid. "Ah, you shall see him," the man said, with a sneering laugh. "The first and foremost shall decide upon the best way to punish you." "He will not punish me," returned Guff calmly, "for I have come here to do him and his people a rare favor. Lead on, fellow, and take me directly to your master." The owl man raised his club with a threatening gesture. "If you try to escape," he said, "beware." But here the general interrupted him. "Spare your threats," he said, "and do not be impertinent, or I will have you severely punished. Lead on and keep silent." This Guff was really a clever rascal, and it seems a pity he was so bad, for in a good cause he might have accomplished much. He realized that he had put himself into a dangerous position by coming to this dreadful mountain. But he also knew that if he showed fear he was lost, so but he also knew that if he showed fear he was lost. So he adopted the bold manner as his best defense. The wisdom of this plan was soon evident, for the phantasm with the owl's head turned and led the way up the mountain. At the very top was a level plain upon which were heaps of rock that at first glance seemed solid. But on looking closer, Guff discovered that these rock heaps were dwellings, for each had an opening. Not a person was to be seen outside the rock huts. All was silent. The owl man led the way among the groups of dwellings to one standing in the center. It seemed no better and no worse than any of the others. Outside the entrance was a rock heap. The guide gave a low wail that sounded like Leo. Suddenly there bounded from the opening another hairy man. This one wore the head of a bear, and in his hand he wore a brass hoop. He glared at the stranger in evident surprise. "Why have you captured this foolish wanderer and brought them here?" he demanded, addressing the owl man. "I did not capture him," was the answer. "He passed the scarlet alligator and came here of his own free will and accord." The first and foremost looked at the general. "Have you tired of life, then?" he asked. "No, indeed," answered Guff. "I am a gnome, and the chief general of the gnome Raquat the Red's great army of gnomes. I come of a long-lived race, and I may say that I expect to live a long time yet. Sit down, you phanphasms, and you can find a seat, if you can find a seat in this wild hunt, and listen to what I have to say." With all his knowledge and bravery, General Guff did not know that the steady glare from the bear's eyes was readying his inmost thoughts as surely as if they had been put into words. He did not know that these despised rock heaps of the phanphasms were merely deceptions to his own eyes, nor could he guess that he was standing in the midst of one of the most splendid and luxurious cities was ever built by magic power. All that he saw was a barren waste of rock heaps, a hairy man with an owl's head and another with a bear's head. The sorcery of the phanphasms permitted him to see no more. Suddenly, the first and foremost swung his brass hoop and caught Guff around the neck with it. The next instant, before the general could think what happened to him, he was dragged inside the rock hut. Here, his eyes still blinded to realities, he perceived only a dim light, by which the hut seemed as rough and rude inside as it was outside. Yet he had a strange feeling that many bright lights were fastened upon him and that he stood in a vast and extensive hall. The first and foremost now laughed grimly and released his prisoner. "If you have anything to say that is interesting," he remarked, "speak out before I strangle you." So Guff spoke out. He tried not to pay any attention to the strange rustling sound that he heard, as of an unseen multitude drawing nearer to listen to his words. His eyes could see only the fierce bear man, and to him he addressed his speech. First, he told of his plan to conquer the land of Oz and plunder the country of its riches and enslave its people, who, being fairies, could not be killed. After relating all of this and telling of the tunnel the Gnome King was building, he said he had come to ask the first and foremost to join the gnomes with his band of terrible warriors and help them to defeat the Oz people. The general spoke very earnestly and impressively, but when he had finished, the bear man began to laugh uh, as if much amused, and his laughter seemed to be echoed by a chorus of merriment from an unseen magnitude. Then, for the first time, Guff began to feel a trifle worried. "Who else has promised to help you?" finally asked the first and foremost. "The Whimsies," replied the general. Again the bare-headed phanphasm laughed. "Any others?" he inquired. "Only the Growlywogs," said Guff. This answer set the first and foremost laughing anew. "What share of the spoils am I to have?" was the next question. "Anything you like, except King Raquat's magic belt," replied Guff. At this the phanphasms set up a roar of laughter which had its echo in the unseen chorus, and the bear man seemed so amused that he actually rolled upon the ground and shouted with merriment. "Oh, these blind, foolish gnomes," he said, "how big they seem to themselves and how small they really are." Suddenly he arose and seized Guff's neck with one hairy paw, dragging him out of the hut and into the open. Here he gave a curious wailing cry, and, as if in answer, from all the rocky huts on the mountaintop came flocking a horde of phanphasms, all with hairy bodies, all wearing heads of various animals, birds, and reptiles. All were ferociously and repulsive looking to the deceived eyes of the gnome, and Guff could not repress a shudder of disgust as he looked upon them. The first and foremost slowly raised his arms, and in a twinkling his hairy skin fell from him, and he appeared before the astonished gnome as a beautiful woman, clothed in a flowering gown of pink gauze. In her dark hair flowers were entwined, and her face was noble and calm. At the same instant, the entire band of phantasms was transformed into a pack of howling wolves, running here and there as they snarled and showed their ugly yellow fangs. The woman now raised her arms, even as the man bear had done. In a twinkling, the wolves became crawling lizards, while she herself changed into a huge butterfly. Guff had only time to cry out in fear and take a step backwards to avoid the lizards when another transformation occurred, and all returned instantly to the forms they had originally worn. Then the first and foremost, who had resumed his hairy body and bare head, turned to the gnome and asked, "Do you still demand our assistance?" "More than ever," answered the general firmly. "Then tell me, what can you offer the phantasms that they have not already?" inquired the first and foremost. Guff hesitated. He really did not know what to say. The Gnome King's vaunted magic belt seemed a poor thing compared to the astonishing magical powers of these people. Gold, jewels, and slaves they might secure in any quantity without a special effort. He felt that he was dealing with powers greatly beyond him. There was but one argument that might influence the phantasms, who were creatures of evil. "Permit me to call your attention to the exquisite joy of making the happy unhappy," he said at last. "Consider the pleasure of destroying innocent and harmless people." "Ah, you have answered me," cried the first and foremost. "For that reason alone we will aid you. Go home and tell your bandy-legged king that as soon as the tunnel is finished, the phantasms will be with him and lead his legions to the conquest of Oz. The deadly desert alone has kept us from destroying Oz long ago, and your underground tunnel is a clever thought. Go home and prepare for our coming." Guff was very glad to be permitted to go with his promise. The Owl Man led him back down the mountain path and ordered the scarlet alligator to crawl away and allow the gnome to cross the bridge in safety. After the visitor had gone, a brilliant, gorgeous city appeared upon the mountain top, clearly visible to the eyes. The gaily dressed multitude of phantasms that lived there, and the first and foremost, beautifully arrayed, addressed the others in these words: "It is time we went into the world and brought sorrow and dismay to its people. Too long have we remained for ourselves upon this mountain top, for while we are thus secluded, many nations have grown happy and prosperous, and the chief joy of the race of phantasms is to destroy happiness. So I think it is lucky that this messenger from the gnomes has arrived among us just now to remind us that the opportunity has come for us to make trouble. We'll use King Rockquat's tunnel to conquer the land of Oz. Then we will destroy the Whimsies, the Growlywogs, and the gnomes, and afterward go out to ravage and annoy and grieve the whole world." The multitude of evil phantasms eagerly applauded this plan, which they fully approved. I am told that the herbs were the most powerful and merciless of all the evil spirits, and the phantasms of Fantastico belong to the race of the herbs. Well, that was kind of wicked. 100 subs away from having one less 151 Zardy. Let's go. Only 100 subs. Let's go. How's it going, Brian? And congratulations on that, Go Spencer. Only 100 subs away from 14K. That's incredible. Doing good. Same to you. Excellent. Appreciate you all being here. Kevo, thanks for reading us. Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you being here, Darker Bunnies. It's always good to see you. Whew, these chapters might be a little bit longer than normal, but it's always cool to see like what the bad guys are doing and what the good guys are doing. Yep, I'd certainly like that in Guff, man. I just don't know why all the evil people of the fairylands, like their main purpose is to destroy happiness and the happiness of others. It's just odd. Just odd indeed. Should I get more coffee? Yes, I should get more coffee. Before we start Chapter 12, How They Matched the Fuddles. Now it looks like we're going back to Dorothy and the crew. Be right back, y'all. There we go. There we go. All right. All right. Let's get into how they match the Fuddles. Chapter 12. And I think we're going till chapter 16. Dorothy and her fellow travelers rode away from the Cut-and-Clip village and followed the indistinct path as far as the signpost. Here they took the main road again and proceeded pleasantly through the pretty farming country. When evening came, they stopped at a dwelling and were joyfully welcomed and given plenty of food and good beds for the night. Early next morning, however, they were up and eager to start, and after a good breakfast, they bade their host good-bye and climbed into the red wagon, to which the sawhorse had been hitched all night. Being made of wood, this horse never got tired nor cared to lie down. Dorothy was not quite sure whether he ever slept or not, but it was certain that he never did when anybody was around. The weather was always beautiful in Oz, and this morning the air was cool and refreshing, and the sunshine brilliant and delightful. In about an hour they came to a place where another road branched off. There was a signpost which read, "This way to Fuddlecumjig." "Oh, here's where we turn," said Dorothy, observing the sign. "What? We're going to Fuddlecumjig?" said the Captain General. "Yes, Ozma thought we might enjoy the Fuddles." "They are said to be interesting," she replied. "No one would suspect it from their name," said Aunt Em. "Who are they, anyhow? More paper things?" "I think not." I apologize, y'all. I'm hearing this buzzing in my ear, and I'm just really hoping that y'all can't hear it. Am I still coming through clear? It's an old headset that I'm trying out new. But when I do this, like I can hear a little buzz in my ear, and I don't know why that is. So just let me know. But I heard it. Fine, cool. All right, I apologize, y'all. I don't like stopping in the middle. But as long as it's fine, I'll ignore it on my side. "I think not," answered Dorothy, laughing. "But I can't say exactly, Aunt Em, what they are. We'll find out when we get there." "Perhaps the wizard knows," suggested Uncle Henry. "No, I've never been there before," said the wizard, "but I've often heard of Fuddlecumjig and the Fuddles, who are said to be the most peculiar people in all the land of Oz." "In what way?" asked the Shaggy Man. "I don't know, I'm sure," said the wizard. Just then, as they rode along the pretty green lane towards Fuddlecumjig, they espied a kangaroo sitting by the roadside. The poor animal had its face covered with both its front paws and was crying so bitterly that the tears coursed down its cheeks in two tiny streams and trickled across the road. There, where they formed a pool in a small hollow. The sawhorse stopped short at the pitiful sight, and Dorothy cried out with ready sympathy, "What's the matter, kangaroo?" "Boo-hoo, boo-hoo," wailed the kangaroo. "I've lost my oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo." "Poor thing," said the wizard. "She'd lost her mister. It's probably her husband, and he's dead." "No, no, no," sobbed the kangaroo. "It wasn't that. I've lost my me, oh, boo-hoo-hoo." "I know," said the Shaggy Man. "She's lost her mirror." "No, it's my boo-hoo-hoo, oh, my," said the kangaroo, cried harder than ever. "It must be her mince pie," suggested Aunt Em. "Or her milk toast," proposed Uncle Henry. "I've lost my mittens," said the kangaroo, getting it out at last. "Oh!" cried the yellow hen, with a cackle of relief. "Why didn't you say so before?" "Boo-hoo-hoo, I couldn't," answered the kangaroo. "But see here," said Dorothy, "you don't need mittens in this warm weather." "Yes, indeed I do," replied the animal, stopping her sobs and removing her paws from her face to look at the little girl reproachfully. "My hands will get all sunburnt and tan without my mittens, and I've worn them so long and I'll probably catch cold without 'em." "Nonsense," said Dorothy. "I never heard of any kangaroo wearing mittens." "Didn't you?" asked the animal, as if surprised. "Never," repeated the girl. "And you'll probably make yourself sick if you don't stop crying. Where do you live?" "About 2 miles from Fuddlecumjig," was the answer. "Grandmother Gint made me the mittens, and she's one of the Fuddles." "Well, you'd better go home now, and perhaps the old lady will make you another pair," suggested Dorothy. "We're on our way to Fuddlecumjig, and you may hop along beside us." So they rode on, and the kangaroo hopped inside beside the red wagon, and seemed quickly to have forgotten her loss. By and by the wizard said to the animal, "Are the Fuddles nice people?" "Oh, very nice," answered the kangaroo. "That is, when they are properly put together. But they get dreadfully scattered and mixed up at times, and then you can't do anything with them." "What do you mean by their getting scattered?" inquired Dorothy. "Why, they they're made in a good many small pieces," explained the kangaroo. "And whenever any stranger comes near them, they have a habit of falling apart and scattering themselves around. That's when they get so dreadfully mixed, and it's hard puzzle to put them together again." "Who usually puts them together?" asked Omby Amby. "Anyone who's able to match their pieces. I sometimes put Grandmother Knit together myself because I know her well, and, well, I know her so well I can tell every piece that belongs to her. Then, when she's all matched, she knits for me. And that's how she made my mittens. But it took a good many days hard knitting, and I had to put Grandmother together a good many times, because every time I came near her, she'd scatter herself." "I should think she would get used to your coming and not be afraid," said Dorothy. "That isn't that," replied the kangaroo. "They're not a bit afraid when they're put together, and usually they're very jolly and pleasant. It's just a habit they have to scatter themselves. If they didn't do it, they wouldn't be Fuddles." The travelers thought upon this quite seriously for a time, while the sawhorse continued to carry them rapidly forward. Then Aunt Em remarked, "I don't see much use of our visiting these Fuddles. If we find 'em scattered, all we can do is sweep 'em up and then go about our business." "Oh, I believe we'd be "Oh, I believe we'd better go on," replied Dorothy. "I'm getting hungry, and we must try to get some luncheon at Fuddlecumjig. Perhaps the food won't be scattered as badly as the people." "You'll find plenty to eat there," declared the kangaroo, hopping along in big bounds because the sawhorse was going so fast. "And they've a fine cook, too, if you can manage to put 'em together. There's the town now, just ahead of us." They looked ahead and saw a group of very pretty houses standing in a green field and a little apart from the main road. "Some Munchkins came here a few days ago and matched a lot of the people together," said the kangaroo. "I think they're I think they are together yet, and if you go softly without making any noise, perhaps they won't scatter." "Let's try it," suggested the wizard, so they stopped the sawhorse and got out of the wagon, and after bidding goodbye to the kangaroo, who hopped away home, they entered the field and very cautiously approached the group of houses. So silently did they move that soon they saw through the windows of the houses people moving around, while others were passing to and fro in the yards between the buildings. They seemed much like other people from a distance, and apparently they did not notice the little party so quietly approaching. They had almost reached the nearest house when Toto saw a large beetle crossing the path and barked loudly at it. Instantly, a wild clatter was heard from the houses and yards. Dorothy thought it sounded like a sudden hailstorm, and the visitors, knowing that caution was no longer necessary, hurried forward to see what had happened. After the clatter, an intense stillness reigned in the town. The strangers entered the first house they came to, which was also the largest, and found the floor strewn with pieces of people who lived there. They looked much like fragments of wood neatly painted and were in all sorts of curious and fantastic shapes, no two pieces being in any way alike. They picked up some of the pieces and looked at them carefully. On one, which Dorothy held, was an eye, which looked at her pleasantly, but with an interested expression, as if it wondered what she was going to do with it. Quite near by, she discovered and picked up a nose, and by matching the two pieces together, found that they were part of a face. "If I could find the mouth," she said, "this fuddle might be able to talk and tell us what to do next." "Then let us find it," replied the wizard, so they all got down on their hands and knees and began examining the scattered pieces. "I found it!" cried the Shaggy Man, and ran to Dorothy with a queer-shaped piece that had a mouth on it. But when they tried to fit it to the eye and nose, they found the parts wouldn't match together. "That mouth belongs to some other person," said Dorothy. "You see, we need a curve here and a point there to make it fit the face." "Well, it must be here someplace," declared the wizard, "so if we search long enough, we shall find it." Dorothy fitted an ear on next, and the ear had a little patch of red hair above it, so while the others were searching for the mouth, she hunted for pieces with red hair, and found several of them, which she matched to the other pieces, formed the top of the man's head, and she had also found the other eye and the ear by the time Omby Amby, in the far corner, discovered the mouth. When the face was thus completed, all the parts joined together with a nicety that was astonishing. "Why, it's like a picture puzzle!" exclaimed the little girl. "Let's find the rest of him and get 'em all together." "What's the rest of him like?" asked the wizard. "Here are some pieces of blue legs and green arms. I don't know whether they are his or not." "Look for a white shirt and a white apron," said the head, which had been put together, speaking in a rather faint voice. "I'm the cook." "Oh, thank you," said Dorothy. "It's lucky we started you first, for I'm hungry, and you can be cooking something for us to eat while we match the other folks together." It was not so very difficult now that they had a hint as to how the man was dressed and to find other pieces belonging to him. And as all of them now worked on the cook, trying piece after piece to see if it would fit, they finally had the cook set up completely. When he was finished, he made them a low bow and said, "I will go at once to the kitchen to prepare your dinner. You will find it something of a job to get all the fuddles together, so I advise you begin on the Lord High Chigglewitz, whose first name is Larry. He's a bald-headed fat man and is dressed in a blue coat with brass buttons, a pink vest, and daub breeches. A piece of his left knee was missing, having been lost years ago when he scattered himself too carelessly. That makes him limp a little, but he gets along very well with half a knee. As he is the chief personage of this town of Fuddlecumjig, he will be able to welcome you and assist you with all the others, so it would be best to work on him while I'm getting your dinner." "We will," said the wizard, "and thank you very much, cook, for the suggestion." Aunt Em was the first to discover a piece of the Lord High Chigglewitz. "It seems to me like a fool business, this matching folks together," she remarked. "But as we haven't anything to do till dinner's ready, we might as well get rid of some of this rubbish. Here, Henry, get busy and look for Larry's bald head. I've got his pink vest all right." They worked with eager interest, and Billina proved to be great help to them. The yellow hen had sharp eyes and could put her head close to various pieces and lay scattered around. She would examine the Lord High Chigglewitz and see which piece of him was next needed, and then the hunt around until she found it, so before the hour had passed, old man Larry was standing complete before them. "I congratulate you, my friends," he said, speaking in a cheerful voice. "You are certainly the cleverest people who ever visited us. I was never matched together so quickly in all my life. I'm considered a great puzzle, usually." "Well," said Dorothy, "there used to be a picture puzzle craze in Kansas, and so I've had some experience matching puzzles. So the pictures were flat, while you are round, but that makes you harder to figure out." "Thank you, my dear," replied old Larry, greatly pleased. "I feel highly complimented." Were I not a really good puzzle, there would be no object in my scattering myself. Why do you do it? Asked Aunt Em severely. Why don't you behave yourself and stay put together? The Lord High Chigglewitz seemed annoyed by this speech, but he replied politely, Madam, you have perhaps noticed that every person has some peculiarity. Mine is to scatter myself. What would your own peculiarity is, I will not venture to say, but I shall never find fault with you, whatever you do. Now you've got your diploma, Em, said Aunt Henry with a laugh, and I'm glad of it. This is a queer country, and we may as well take people as we find them. If we did, we'd leave these folks scattered, she returned, and this retort made everybody laugh a little naturedly. Just then, Ambi found a hand with a knitting needle in it, and they decided to put Grandmother Gint together. She proved an easier puzzle than old Larry, and when she was completed, they found her a pleasant old lady who welcomed them cordially. Dorothy told her how the kangaroo had lost her mittens, and Grandmother Gimp promised to set to work at once to make the poor animal another pair. Then the cook came to call them for dinner, and they found an inviting meal prepared for them. The Lord High Chigglewitz sat at the head of the table, and Grandmother Gint at the foot, and the guests in merry time and thoroughly enjoyed themselves. After dinner, they went into the yard and matched several other people together, and this work was so interesting that they might have spent the entire day in Fuddlecumjig, had not the wizard suggested that they resume their journey. But I don't like to leave all these poor people scattered, said Dorothy, undecided what to do. Oh, don't mind us, my dear, returned old Larry. Every day or so, some of the Gillikins or Munchkins or Winkies come here to amuse themselves by matching us together, so there's no harm in leaving these little pieces where they are for a time. But I hope you'll visit us again, and if you do, you will always be welcome, I assure you. Don't you ever match each other? She inquired. Never, for we are no puzzles to ourselves, and so there wouldn't be any fun in it. They now said goodbye to the queer Fuddles and got into the wagon and continued their journey. Those are certainly strange people, remarked Aunt Em thoughtfully, as they drove away from Fuddlecumjig. But I really can't see what use they are at all. Why, they amused us for several hours, replied the wizard. That is being of use to us, I'm sure. I think they're more fun than playing solitaire or mumbly pig, declared Uncle Henry soberly. For my part, I'm glad we visited the Fuddles. Me shins! How's it going? I saw that short pulling gold too, man. You brought a tear to my eye. Bedtime already? Don't forget to like the stream, good people. This man does a lot. Oh man, I appreciate that of all trades. And I hope you are doing right. No. I think that's just telling me it's connected. But I appreciate you calling that out because I can never be too sure. I think you all can still hear me. So thanks, brother. Go. Yeah, that was insane. Insane to see. It's good to see you, Mishans. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm hoping that this is the winter chicken dinner. Except for this little buzz that I can hear in my ear, I think that this is making the beautiful. Sakia. Well, hello, Sakia. How are you? I appreciate you coming in. Really good to see you, and I hope you're having a great rest of your night. Or I hope the rest of your night went well, I should say. We're just about to get into chapter 13, which is how the general talked to the king. But before I do that, weirdest thing. All right. Chapter 13, how the general talked to the king. When General Guff returned to his cavern of the Gnome King, His Majesty asked, "Well, what luck? Will the Whimsies join us?" "They will," answered the general. "They will fight for us with all their strength and cunning." "Good!" exclaimed the king. "What reward did you promise them?" "Your Majesty is to use the magic belt to give the Whimsies a large, fine head in place of their small one that he is now obliged to wear." "I agree to that," said the king. "This is good news, Guff. That makes me feel more certain of the conquest of Oz." "But I have other news for you," announced the general. "Good or bad?" "Good, your Majesty." "Then I will hear it," said the king with interest. "The Growlywogs will join us." "No!" cried the astonished king. "Yes, indeed," said the general. "I have their promise." "But what reward do they demand?" inquired the king suspiciously, for he knew how greedy the Growlywogs were. "They are to take a few of the Oz people for their slaves," replied Guff. He did not think it necessary to tell Roquat that the Growlywogs demanded 20,000 slaves. It would be time enough for that when Oz was conquered. "A very reasonable request, I'm sure," remarked the king. "I must congratulate you, Guff, upon the wonderful success of your journey. But that's not all," said the general proudly. The king seemed astonished. "Speak out, sir," he commanded. I have seen the first and foremost phantasm of the mountain of Fantastico, and he will bring his people to assist us." "What?" cried the king. "The phantasms? You don't mean it, Guff." "It is true," declared the general proudly. The king became thoughtful and his brows wrinkled. "I'm afraid, Guff," he said rather anxiously, "that the first and foremost may prove as dangerous to us as the Oz people. If he and his terrible band come down from the mountains, they may take the notion to conquer the gnomes." "Pah! That is a foolish idea," retorted Guff irritably. But he knew in his heart that the king was right. "The first and foremost is a particular friend of mine and will do us no harm. Why, when I was there, he even invited me into his house." The general neglected to tell the king how he had been jerked into the hut of the first and foremost by means of the brass hoop. So Roquat the Red looked at his general admiringly and said, "You're a wonderful gnome, Guff. I'm sorry I did not make you my general before. But what reward did the first and foremost demand?" "Nothing at all," answered Guff. "Even the magic belt itself could not add to the powers of sorcery. All the Phanphasms wish is to destroy the Oz people, who are good and happy. This pleasure will aptly repay them for assisting us." "When will they come?" asked Roquat, half fearfully. "When the tunnel is completed," said the general. "We are nearly halfway under the desert now," announced the king, "and that is fast work, because the tunnel has to be drilled through solid rock. But after we have passed the desert, it will not take us long to extend the tunnel to the walls of the Emerald City." "Well, whenever you are ready, we shall be joined by the Whimsies, the Growlywogs, and the Phanphasms," said Guff. "So the conquest of Oz is assured without any doubt." Again the king seemed thoughtful. "I'm almost sorry we did not undertake the conquest alone," he said. "All of these allies are dangerous people, and they may demand more than you have promised them. I might have been better to have conquered Oz without any outside assistance." "We could not do it," said the general positively. "Why not, Guff?" "You know very well. You have had one experience with the Oz people, and they defeated you." "That was because they rolled eggs at us," replied the king with a shudder. "My gnomes cannot stand eggs any more than I can myself. They are poison to all who live underground." "That's true enough," agreed Guff. "But we might have taken the Oz people by surprise and conquered them before they had a chance to get any eggs. Or former defeat was due to the fact that the girl Dorothy had a yellow hen with her. I do not know whatever became of that hen, but I believe there is no hens at all in the land of Oz, and so there will be no eggs there." "On the contrary," said Guff, "there are now hundreds of chickens in Oz, and they lay heaps of those dangerous eggs. I met a goshawk on my way home, and the bird informed me that he had lately been to Oz to capture and devour some of the young chickens. But they are protected by magic, so the hawk did not get a single one of them." "That is a very bad report," said the king nervously. "Very bad indeed. My gnomes are willing to fight, but they simply cannot face hens' eggs, and I don't blame them." "They won't need to face them," replied Guff. "I'm afraid of eggs myself, and don't propose to take any chances of being poisoned by them. My plan is to send the Whimsies through the tunnel first, and then the Growlywogs and the Phanphasms. By the time we gnomes get there, the eggs will be all used up, and we might then pursue and capture our inhabitants at our leisure." "Perhaps you're right," returned the king with a dismal sigh. But I want it distinctly understood that I claim Ozma and Dorothy as my own prisoners. They are rather nice girls, and I do not intend to let any of those dreadful creatures hurt them or make them their slaves. When I have captured them, I will bring them here and transform them into china ornaments to stand on my mantle. They will look very pretty, Dorothy on one end of the mantle and Ozma on the other, and I shall take great care to see they are not broken when the maids dust them. Very well, your majesty. Do what you will with the girls for all I care. Now that our plans are arranged, we will have the three most powerful bands of evil spirits in the world to assist us. Let us make haste to get the tunnel finished as soon as possible. It will be ready in 3 days, promised the king, and hurried away to inspect the work to see if the gnomes kept busy. Hmm. Okay then. And that day was good, but I'm getting sleepy. Have a great night. I'll have a great night, Jays. Hi, Anna. Cavs coaches unite. What kind of coaches? So they, uh, I guide them. So they're my coaches. I'm their team leader, and both of them are very good at what they do. Yeah, for the day job, which I try not to combine the two, but it's always good to see you guys pop in. Always good. Whew. Getting into it, we got about 2 chapters left, about a half hour to go. I think we are right on track. I think we're right on track. I appreciate you guys being here. All of you got 14 of you in here, about an hour and a half into it. This headset, I want to turn it off and back on. So I think I'm going to real quick. Just give me a second. All right. Can you all hear me still? Coffee running through me. No worries at all, Mishans. All right. Awesome. I got rid of the little buzz. Sweet. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Chapter 14. Hey, Espolo. How's it going? It's good to see you, fam. We are reading tonight. Chapter 14. How the Wizard Practiced Sorcery. Where next? Asked the wizard when they left the town of Fuddlecumjig, and the sawhorse had started back along the road. Why, Ozma laid out this trip. Hmm, replied Dorothy, and she visited us to see the rigmaroles next, and then visit the Tin Woodman. That sounds good, said the wizard, but what road do we take to get to the rigmaroles? I don't know exactly, returned the little girl, but it must be somewhere to the southwest of here. Then why need Then why need we go back to the crossroads? Asked the Shaggy Man. We might save a lot of time by branching off here. There isn't any path, asserted Uncle Henry. Then we better go back signpost and make sure of our way, decided Dorothy. But after they had gone a short distance further, the sawhorse, who had overheard their conversation, stopped and said, Here's a path. Sure enough, a dim path seemed to branch off from the road they were on, and it led across to pretty green meadows and past leafy groves, straight toward the southwest. It looked like a good path, said Omby Amby. Why not try it? All right, answered Dorothy. I'm anxious to see what the rigmaroles are like, and this path ought to take us there the quickest way. No one made any objection to this plan, so the sawhorse turned into the path, which proved to be nearly as good as the one they had just taken to get to the Fuddles. At first, they passed a few retired farmhouses, but soon these scattered dwellings were left behind, and only the meadows and the trees were before them. But they rode along in cheerfully contentment, and Aunt Em got into an argument with Bellina about the proper way to raise chickens. I don't care to contradict you, said the yellow hen with dignity. But I have an idea I know more about chickens than human beings do. Pshaw, replied Aunt Em. I've raised chickens for nearly 40 years, Bellina, and I know you've got to starve 'em to make 'em lay lots of eggs, and stuff 'em if you want good boilers. Boilers! Exclaimed Bellina in horror. Boil my chickens! Why, that's what they're for, ain't it? Asked Aunt Em, astonished. No, Aunt, not in Oz, said Dorothy. People do not eat chickens here, you see. Bellina was the first hen that ever seen in this country, and I brought her here myself. Everybody liked her and respected her, so the Oz people wouldn't any more eat her chickens than they would eat Bellina. Well, I declare, gasped Aunt Em. How about the eggs? Oh, if we have more eggs than we want to hatch, we allow people to eat them, said Bellina. Indeed, I am very glad the Oz folks like our eggs, for otherwise they would spoil. This certainly is a queer country, sighed Aunt Em. Excuse me, called the Sawhorse. The path has ended, and I'd like to know which way to go. They looked around, and sure enough, there was no path to be seen. Well, said Dorothy, we're going southwest, and that seemed just as easy to follow that direction without a path as with one. Certainly, answered the Sawhorse. It is not hard to draw the wagon over the meadow. I only want to know where to go. There's a forest over there across the prairie, said the Wizard, and it lies in the direction we're going. Make straight for the forest, Sawhorse, and you're bound to go right. So the wooden animal trotted on again, and the meadow grass was soft under. Soft under the wheels, that made it easy riding, but Dorothy was a little uneasy at losing the path, because now there was nothing to guide them. No houses were to be seen at all, so they could not ask the way of any farmer. And although the land of Oz was always beautiful, whenever one might go, this part of the country was strange to all the party. Perhaps we're lost, suggested Aunt Em after they had proceeded quite a way in silence. Never mind, said the Shaggy Man. I've been lost many a time. And so was Dorothy, and we've always been found again. But we may get hungry, reminded Omby Amby. That's the worst of getting lost in a place when there's no houses near. We had a good dinner at the Fuddle Town, said Uncle Henry, and that'll keep us from starving to death for a long time. No one ever starved to death in Oz, declared Dorothy positively, but people may get pretty hungry sometimes. The Wizard said nothing, and he did not seem especially anxious. The Sawhorse was trotting along briskly, yet the forest seemed farther away than they had thought when they first saw it. So it was nearly sundown when they finally came to the trees. But now they found themselves in the most beautiful spot, the widespread trees being covered with flowering vines and having soft mosses beneath them. This will be a good place to camp, said the Wizard, as the Sawhorse stopped for further instructions. Camp, they all echoed. Certainly, asserted the Wizard. It will be dark before very long, and we cannot travel through this forest at night, so let us make camp here and have some supper and sleep until daylight comes again. They all looked at the little man in astonishment, and Aunt Em said with a sniff, A pretty camp we'll have, I must say. I suppose you intend us to sleep under the wagon. And chew grass for our supper, added the Shaggy Man, laughing, but Dorothy seemed to have no doubts and was very cheerful. It's lucky we have the wonderful Wizard with us, she said, because he can do most anything he wants to. Oh, yes, I forgot we had a wizard, said Uncle Henry, looking at the little man curiously. I didn't, chirped Bellina contentedly. The wizard smiled and climbed out of the wagon, and all the others followed him. In order to camp, he said, the first thing we need is tents. Will someone please lend me a handkerchief? The Shaggy Man offered him one, and Aunt Em another. He took them both and laid them carefully upon the grass near the edge of the forest. Then he laid his own handkerchief down too, and standing a little back from them, he waved his hand towards the handkerchiefs and said, Tents of canvas white as snow, let me see how fast you grow. Then, lo and behold, the handkerchiefs became tiny tents, and as the travelers looked at them, the tents grew bigger and bigger until, in a few minutes, each one was large enough to contain an entire party. This, said the Wizard, pointing to his first tent, is for the accommodation of the ladies. Dorothy, you and your aunt may step inside and take off your things. Everyone ran to look inside the tent, and they saw two pretty white beds, all ready for Dorothy and Aunt Em, and a silver roost for Billina. Rugs were spread upon the grassy floor, and some camp chairs and a table completed the furniture. Well, 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 this beats anything I ever saw or heard of, exclaimed Aunt Em, and she glanced at the wizard almost fearfully, as if he might be dangerous because of his great powers. Oh, Mr. Wizard, how did you manage to do it? Asked Dorothy. It's a trick Glinda the sorceress taught me, and it is much better magic than I used to practice in Omaha, or when I first came to Oz, he answered. When the good Glinda found I was to live in the Emerald City always, she promised to help me, because she said the Wizard of Oz ought to really be a clever wizard and not a humbug. So we have been much together, and I am learning so fast that I expect to be able to accomplish some really wonderful things in time. You've done it now, declared Dorothy. These tents are just wonderful. But come to see the man's tent, said the wizard, so they went to the second tent, which had shaggy edges because it was made from the Shaggy Man's handkerchief, and found that completely furnished also. It contained four neat beds for Uncle Henry, Omby Amby, and the Shaggy Man and Wizard. Also, there was a soft rug for Toto to lie upon. The third tent, explained the wizard, is our dining room and kitchen. They visited that next and found a table and dishes in the dining tent, with plenty of those things necessary to use in cooking. The wizard carried out a big kettle and set in swinging on a crowbar before the tent. While he was doing this, Omby Amby and the Shaggy Man brought a supply of twigs from the forest, and they built a little fire underneath the kettle. Now, Dorothy, said the wizard, smiling, I expect you to cook our supper. But there's nothing in the kettle, she cried. Are you sure? Inquired the wizard. I didn't see anything put in, and I'm almost sure it was empty when you brought it out, she replied. Nevertheless, said the little man, winking slyly at Uncle Henry, you will do well to watch our supper, my dear, and see that it doesn't boil over. Then the men took some pails and went to the forest to search for a spring of water. And while they were gone, Aunt Em said to Dorothy, I believe the wizard is fooling us. I saw the kettle myself, and when he hung it over the fire, there wasn't a thing in it but air. Don't worry, remarked Billina confidently, as she nestled in the grass before the fire. You'll find something in the kettle when it's taken off, and it won't be poor, innocent chickens either. Your hen has very bad manners, Dorothy, said Aunt Em, looking somewhat disdainfully at Billina. Seems too bad she ever learned how to talk. There might have been another unpleasant quarrel between Aunt Em and Billina had the men not returned with their pails filled with clear, sparkling water. The wizard told Dorothy that she was a good cook, and he believed their supper was ready. So Uncle Henry lifted the kettle from the fire and poured its contents into a big platter, which the wizard held for him. The platter was fairly heaped with a fine stew, smoking hot, with many kinds of vegetables and dumplings and rich, delicious gravy. The wizard triumphantly placed the platter upon the table in the dining tent, and they all sat down in the camp chairs to feast. There were several other dishes on the table, all carefully covered, and when they came time to remove these covers, they found bread and butter, cakes, cheeses, pickles, and fruits, including some of the luscious strawberries of Oz. No one ventured to ask a question as to how these things came there. They contented themselves by eating heartily and good things provided. And Toto and Billina had their full share, you may be sure. After the meal was over, Aunt Em whispered to Dorothy, That may have been magic food, my dear, and for that reason perhaps it won't be very nourishing, but I'm willing to say it tasted as good as anything I ever ate. Then she added in a louder voice, Who's going to do the dishes? No one, madam, answered the wizard. The dishes have done themselves. La sakes! Ejaculated the good lady, holding up her hands in amazement, for sure enough she looked at the dishes, they had movement before She looked at the dishes they had a moment before left upon the table. She found them all washed and dried and piled up in neat stacks. Whew, that one was hard for some reason. Uh-oh. Is it kind of like the like Japanese dub movies? I am going to have to see this for myself and hear it. It seems to be okay on my side. Maybe a little slow. Time traveler. I am sorry for that. I could read like this if that would help. But we're going to get into. It went kind of wonky. Yeah, I just turned it off and back on, honestly, because I could hear this little electric buzzing in my ear. No worries. I could try and turn it off and back on again, but it might be the Wi-Fi too, because my internet has been a little wonky lately. I was doing the same thing. Okay, I appreciate that, Mishins. I'll look into it and see if I can get something a little better. How Dorothy happened to get lost. Should drink my coffee before it goes cold. Enjoy, brother. It was a beautiful evening, so they drew their camp chairs in a circle before one of the tents and began to tell stories to amuse themselves and pass away the time before they went to bed. Pretty soon a zebra was seen coming out of the forest, and he trotted straight up to them and said politely, "Good evening, people." The zebra was a sleek little animal and had a slender head, a stubby mane, and a paintbrush tail, very like a donkey's. His neatly shaped white body was covered with regular bars of dark brown, and his hooves were delicate as those of a deer. "Good evening, friend zebra," said Omniambi, in reply to the creature's greetings. "Can we do anything for you?" "Yes," answered the zebra. "I should like you to settle a dispute that has long been a bother to me, as to whether there is more water or land in the world." "Who are you disputing with?" asked the wizard. "With a soft-shell crab," said the zebra. "He lives in a pool where I go to drink every day, and he is a very impertinent crab, I assure you. I have told him many times that the land is much greater in extent than the water. But he will not be convinced. Even this very evening, when I told him he was an insignificant creature who lived in a small pool, he asserted that the water is greater and more important than the land. So, seeing your camp, I decided to ask you to settle the dispute once and for all, that I may not be further annoyed by this ignorant crab." When they had listened to the explanation, Dorothy inquired, "Where is the soft-shell crab?" "Not far away," replied the zebra. "If you will agree to judge between us, I'll run and get him." "Run along, then," said the little girl. So the animal pranced into the forest and came trotting back to them. When he drew nearer, they found a soft-shell crab clinging fast to the stiff hair of the zebra's head, where he held on by one claw. "Now then, Mr. Crab," said the zebra, "here are the people I told you about, and they know more than you do, who lives in a pool, and more than I do, who lives in a forest. For they have been travelers all over the world, and know every part of it." "There is more than the world of Oz," declared the crab in a stubborn voice. "That is true," said Dorothy, "but I used to live in Kansas and the United States, and I've been to California and to Australia, and so has Uncle Henry." "For my part," added the Shaggy Man, "I've been to Mexico and Boston and many other foreign countries." "And I," said the wizard, "have been to Europe and Ireland. So you see," continued the zebra, addressing the crab, "here are people of real consequence who know what they're talking about." "Then they know there's more water in the world than there is land," asserted the crab in a shrill, petulant voice. "They know you are wrong to make such an absurd statement, and they will probably think you are a lobster instead of a crab," retorted the animal. At this taunt, the crab reached out his other claw and seized the zebra's ear, and the creature gave a cry of pain and began prancing up and down, trying to shake off the crab, which clung fast. "Stop pinching!" cried the zebra. "You promised not to pinch if I would carry you here." "And you promised to treat me respectfully?" asked the crab, letting go of the ear. "Well, haven't I?" demanded the zebra. "No, you called me a lobster," said the crab. "Ladies and gentlemen," continued the zebra, "please pardon my poor friend, because he is ignorant and stupid and does not understand. Also, the pinch of his claw is very annoying, so pray tell him that the world contains more land than water, and when he has heard your judgment, I will carry him back to the dump him into his pool, where I hope he will be more modest in the future." But we cannot tell him that, said Dorothy gravely, because it would not be true. What? Exclaimed the zebra in astonishment. Do I hear you all right? The soft-shell crab is correct, declared the wizard. There is considerably more water than there is land in the world. Impossible, protested the zebra. Why, I can run for days upon the land and find but little water. Did you ever see an ocean? Asked Dorothy. Never, admitted the zebra. There is no such thing as an ocean in the land of Oz. Well, there are several oceans in the world, said Dorothy, and people sail in ships upon these oceans for weeks and weeks and never see a bit of land at all. And the geographies will tell you that all the oceans put together are bigger than all the land put together. At this, the crab began laughing in queer chuckles and reminded Dorothy of the way Billina sometimes cackled. Now will you give up, Mr. Zebra? It cried jeeringly. Now will you give up? The zebra seemed much humbled. Of course I cannot read geographies, he said. You could take one of the wizard's school pills, suggested Billina, and that would make you learned and wise without studying. The crab began laughing again, which so provoked the zebra that he tried to shake the little creature off. This resulted in more ear pinching. And finally, Dorothy told them that if they could not behave, they must go back to the forest. I'm sorry I asked you to decide this question, said the zebra crossly. So long as neither of us could prove that we were right, we quite enjoyed the dispute, but now I can never drink at that pool again without the soft-shell crab laughing at me, so I must find another drinking place. Do, you ignoramus, cried the crab, as loudly as his little voice would carry. Rile some other pool with your clumsy hooves, and let your betters alone after this. Then the zebra trotted back into the forest, bearing the crab with him, and disappeared amid the gloom of the trees. And as it is now getting dark, the travelers said good night to each other and went to bed. Dorothy awoke just as the light was beginning to get strong next morning, and not caring to sleep any later, she quietly got out of bed, dressed herself, and left the tent where Aunt Em was yet peacefully slumbering. Outside, she noticed Billina busily pecking around to secure bugs or other food for breakfast, but none of the men and the other tent seemed awake, so the little girl decided to take a walk in the woods and try to discover some path or road that they might follow when they again started upon their journey. She had reached the edge of the forest when the yellow hen came fluttering along and asked where she was going. Just to take a walk, Billina, and maybe find some path, said Dorothy. Then I'll go along, decided Billina, and scarcely had she spoken when Toto ran up and joined them. Toto and the yellow hen had begun quite friendly at this time, although at first they did not get along well together. Billina had been rather suspicious of dogs, and Toto had an idea that it was every dog's duty to chase a hen on sight. But Dorothy had talked to them and scolded them for not being agreeable to one another until they grew better acquainted and became friends. I won't say they loved each other dearly, but at least they had stopped quarreling and now managed to get on together very well. The day was growing lighter every minute and driving the black shadows out of the forest, so Dorothy found it very pleasant walking under the trees. She went some distance in one direction, but not finding a path, pleasantly turned in a different direction. There was no path here either, although she advanced quite a way into the forest, winding here and there among the trees and peering through the bushes in an endeavor to find some beaten track. I think we better go back, suggested the yellow hen after a time. The people will all be up by this time and breakfast will be ready. Very well, agreed Dorothy. Let's see, the camp must be over this way. She had probably made a mistake about that, for after they had gone far enough to reach the camp, they still found themselves in the thick of the woods. So the little girl stopped short and looked around her, and Toto glanced up into her face with his bright little eyes and wagged his tail as if he knew something was wrong. He couldn't tell much about the direction himself, because he had spent his time prowling among the bushes and running here and there, nor had Billina paid any attention to where they were going, being interested in picking bugs from the moss they had passed along. The yellow hen now turned one eye up toward the little girl and asked, Have you forgotten where camp is, Dorothy? Yes, she admitted. Have you, Billina? I didn't try to remember, returned Billina. I had no idea you would get us lost, Dorothy. That's the thing we don't expect, Billina. That usually happens, observed the girl thoughtfully. But it's no use standing here. Let's go in that direction, pointing a finger at random. It might be well to get out of the forest over there. So on they went again, and this way the trees were closer together and the vines were so tangled that often they tripped Dorothy up. Suddenly a voice cried sharply, "Halt!" At first Dorothy could see nothing, although she looked around very carefully, but Billina exclaimed, "Well, I declare!" "What is it?" asked the little girl, for Toto began barking at something, and following his gaze she discovered what it was. A row of spoons had surrounded the three, and these spoons stood straight up with their handles and carried swords and muskets. Their faces were outlined in the polished bowls, and they looked very stern and severe. Dorothy laughed at the queer things. "Who are you?" she asked. "We are the Spoon Brigade," said one. "In the service of His Majesty King Cleaver," said the other. "And you are our prisoners," said the third. Dorothy sat down on an old stump and looked at them, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "What would happen," she inquired, "if I should set my dog on your brigade?" "He would die," replied one of the spoons sharply. "One shot from our deadly muskets would kill him, big as he is." "Don't risk it, Dorothy," advised the Yellow Hen. "Remember, this is a fairy country. Yet none of us three happens to be a fairy." Dorothy grew sober at this. "Perhaps you're right, Billina," she answered, "but how funny it is to be captured by a lot of spoons." "I don't see anything funny about it," declared a spoon. "We're a regular military brigade in the kingdom." "What kingdom?" she asked. "Utensia," he said. "I never heard of it before," asserted Dorothy. Then she added thoughtfully, "I don't believe Ozma ever heard of Utensia either. Tell me, are you not subjects of Ozma of Oz?" "We have never heard of her," retorted a spoon. "We are subjects of King Cleaver, and obey only his orders, which are to bring all prisoners to him as soon as they are captured. So step lively, my girl, and march with us, or we may be tempted to cut off a few of your toes with our swords." This threat made Dorothy laugh again. She did not believe she was in any danger, but here was a new and interesting adventure, so she was willing to be taken to Utensia, that she might see what King Cleaver's kingdom was like. Okay, cool. Cool. Utensia. I can only assume that all of the people in Utensia are kitchen utensils. Sorry for the mismatch of my voice to the audio, y'all. Luckily, it's not another stream, and the reading isn't going to change anything. But I appreciate y'all being here. Still got 11 of you up in here. Really appreciate y'all. 28 likes. That's incredible. And this is going to be the last chapter of this read. Just at about that 2 hours, so right on track. And this is how Dorothy visited Utensia. There must have been from 6 to 8 dozen spoons in the brigade, and they marched away in the shape of a hollow square, with Dorothy, Billina, and Toto in the center of the square. Before they had gone very far, Toto knocked over one of the spoons by wagging his tail, and the captain of the spoons told the little dog to be more careful, or he would be punished. So Toto was careful, and the spoon brigade moved along with astonishing swiftness, while Dorothy really had to walk fast to keep up with it. By and by they left the woods and entered the big clearing in which was the kingdom of Utensia. Standing all around the clearing were a good many cook stoves, ranges, and grills of all sizes and shapes, and beside these were several kitchen cabinets and cupboards and a few kitchen tables. These things were crowded with utensils of all sorts: frying pans, saucepans, kettles, forks, knives, basting and soup spoons, nutmeg graters, sifters, colanders, meat sauce, flat irons, rolling pins, and many other things of like nature. When the Spoon Brigade appeared with the prisoners, a wild shout arose, and many of the utensils hopped off their stoves and their benches and ran crowding around Dorothy and the hen and the dog. "Stand back!" cried the captain sternly, and he led his captives through the curious throng until they came before a big range that stood in the center of a clearing. Besides this range was a butcher block upon which lay a great cleaver with his keen edge. It rested upon the flat of its back, its legs were crossed, and it was smoking a long pipe. "Wake up, your majesty," said the captain. "Here are prisoners." Hearing this, King Cleaver sat up and looked at Dorothy sharply. "Gristle and fat," he cried. "Where did this girl come from?" "I found her in the forest and brought her here as a prisoner," replied the captain. "Why did you do that?" inquired the king, puffing his pipe lazily. "To create some excitement," the captain answered. "It is so quiet here, and we are all getting rusty and want some amusement. For my part, I prefer to see stirring times." "Naturally," returned the Cleaver, with a nod. "I have always said, Captain, without a bit of irony, that you are a sterling officer and a solid citizen. Bold and polished to a degree. But what do you expect me to do with these prisoners?" "That is for you to decide," declared the captain. "You are the king." To be sure," he muttered the Cleaver musingly. "As you say, we have had dull times since the steel and grindstone eloped and left us. Command my counselors and royal courtiers to attend me, as well as the high priest and the judge will decide what can be done." The captain saluted and retired, and Dorothy sat down on an overturned kettle and asked, "Have you anything to eat in your kingdom?" "Here, get up, get off of me," cried a faint voice, at which His Majesty, the Cleaver, said, "Excuse me, but you are sitting on my friend 10-quart kettle." Dorothy at once arose, and the kettle turned right side up, and looked at her reproachfully. "I'm a friend of the king, so no one dares sit on me," he said. "I'd prefer a chair anyways," she replied. "Sit on that hearth," commanded the king. So Dorothy sat on the hearth shelf of a big range, and the subject of Utensia began to gather round in large and inquisitive throng. Toto lay at Dorothy's feet, and Billina flew upon the range, which had no fire on it, and perched there as comfortable as she could. When all counselors and courtiers had assembled, and these seemed to include most of the inhabitants of the kingdom, the king rapped on the block for the order and said, "Friends and fellow utensils, our worthy commander of the Spoon Brigade, Captain Dip, has captured the 3 prisoners you see before you and brought them here for, I don't know what for. So I ask your advice on how to act in this matter and what fate I should mete out to these captives. Judge Sifter, stand on my right. It is your business to sift this affair to the bottom. High Priest Colander, stand on my left and see no one testifies falsely in this matter." As these 2 officials took their place, Dorothy asked, "Why is the Colander the high priest?" "He is the holiest thing we have ever had in the kingdom," replied the King Cleaver. "Except me," said the sieve. "I am a whole thing when it comes to holes." "What we need," remarked the king rebukingly, "is a wireless sieve. I must speak I must speak to Marconi about it. These old-fashioned sieves talk too much. Now, it is the duty of the king counselors to counsel the king at all times of emergency, so I beg you to speak out and advise me what to do with these prisoners." "I demand that they are killed several times until they are dead," shouted a pepperbox, hopping around very excitedly. "Compose yourself, Mr. Paprika," advised the king. "Your remarks are piquant and highly seasoned, but you need a scattering of common sense. It is only necessary to kill a person once to make him dead, but I do not see that it is a necessity to kill this little girl at all." "I don't either," said Dorothy. "Pardon me, but you are not expected to advise me in this matter," replied King Cleaver. "Why not?" asked Dorothy. "You might be prejudiced in your own favor, so mislead us." "And so mislead us," he said. "Now then, good subjects, who speaks next?" "I like to smooch this thing over and over in some way," said the Flatiron earnestly. "Wow, I'm so sorry, El." "I'd like to smooth this thing over in some way," said the Flatiron earnestly. "We are supposed to be useful to mankind, you know." "But the girl isn't mankind, she is womankind," yelled the Corkscrew. "What do you know about it?" inquired the king. "I am a lawyer," said the Corkscrew proudly. "I am accustomed to appear at the bar." "But you are crooked," retorted the king, "and that debars you. You may be a corking good lawyer, Mr. Pop, but I must ask you to withdraw your remarks." "Very well," said the Corkscrew sadly. "I still haven't I see I haven't any pull at this court." "Permit me," continued the Flatiron, "to press my suit, your majesty. I do not wish to gloss over any fault a prisoners may have committed. If such a fault exists, we but owe her some consideration, and that's flat. I'd like to hear from Prince Carver, said the king. At this, a stately carving knife stepped forward and bowed. The captain was wrong to bring this girl here, and she was wrong to come here, he said. But now that the foolish deed is done, let us all prove our mettle and have a slashing good time. That's it, screamed the flat screamed a fat chopping knife. We'll make mincemeat of this girl and hash out of the chicken and sausage out of the dog. There was a shout of approval at this, and the king had to rap again for order. Gentlemen, gentlemen, he said, your remarks are somewhat cutting and rather disjointed, as might be expected from such acute intellects, but you give me little reason. You give me no reasons for your demands. See here, Cleaver, you make me tired, said a saucepan, strutting before the king very impudently. You're worse than the king. You are about the worst king that ever reigned in Utensia, and that's saying a good deal. Why, you don't even run things yourself. Instead, you ask everybody else's advice, like a big, clumsy idiot you are. The king sighed. I wish there wasn't a saucepan in my kingdom, he said. You fellows are always stewing over something, and every once in a while you slop over and make a mess of it. Go hang yourself, sir, by the handle, and don't let me hear from you again. Dorothy was much shocked by the dreadful language the utensils employed, and she thought that they must have had very little proper training. So she said, addressing the king, who seemed very unfit to rule this turbulent subjects, I wish you'd decide my fate right away. I can't stay here all day trying to find out what you're going to do with me. This thing has become a regular broil, and it's time I took part in it, observed the big gridiron, coming forward. What I'd like to know, said the can opener in a shrill voice, is why the little girl came to our forest anyhow, and why she intruded upon Captain Dip, who ought to be called Dippy, and who she is, and where she came from, and where she's going, and why, and whereforth, and thereforth, and when. I'm sorry to see, Sir Jabber, remarked the king to the can opener, that you have such a prying disposition. As a matter of fact, all the things you mention are none of our business. Having said this, the king relit his pipe, which had gone out. Tell me, please, what is your business? Inquired the potato masher, winking at Dorothy somewhat impertinently. I'm fond of little girls myself, and it seems she has much right to wander in the forest as we have. Who accuses the little girl, anyway? Inquired the rolling pin. What has she done? I don't know, said the king. What has she done, Captain Dip? That's the trouble, your majesty. She hasn't done anything, replied the captain. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Asked Dorothy. This question seemed to puzzle them finely, and Chafing Dish exclaimed irritably, If no one can throw any light on this subject, you must excuse me if I go out. At this, the big kitchen fork pricked up its ears and said in a tiny voice, Let's hear from Judge Sifter. That's proper, returned the king. So Judge Sifter turned around slowly several times and said, We have nothing against the girl except the stove hearth upon which she sits. Therefore I order her instantly discharged. Discharged? Cried Dorothy. Why, I never was discharged in my life, and I don't intend to be. If it's all the same to you, I'll resign. It's all the same, declared the king. You are free, you and your companions. You may go whenever you like. Thank you, said the little girl. But haven't you anything to eat in your kingdom? I'm hungry. Go into the woods and pick blackberries, advised the king, lying down upon his back again and preparing to go to sleep. There isn't a morsel to eat in all of Utensia, that I know of. So Dorothy jumped up and said, Come on, Toto and Bellina. If we can't find the camp, we might find some blackberries. The utensils just drew back and allowed them to pass without protest, although Captain Dip marched the Spoon Brigade in close order after them until they had reached the edge of the clearing, where the spoons halted, but Dorothy and her companions entered the forest again and began searching diligently for a way back to camp, that they might rejoin their party. And that's the end of chapter 16. Shipping out the box is going to be fun. Oh, man, I appreciate that, Rafa. I truly do. Shots fired. These roasts sound like my stream. Like, yeah, right? And man, let me tell you, I just can't. I couldn't get over how many puns were in that chapter and just all the utensils. That's why I could not stop laughing about it. It seemed like they were just putting them in there to put them in there then. So that was very humorous to me. So I apologize for that, but I'm kind of glad that she's out of Utensia because those were some pretty funny people. I appreciate that, JB. Appreciate that, Matt. I think that's going to be our last chapter for the night. We're just past that 2 hour mark, and I think it's time for me to grab some dinner and unwind myself. And this was a perfect way to start doing that. I really appreciate you all. Let me ask us this: is there anybody currently on right now, Matt, that you can see? We can go and bless with our reading raid. Reading raid, Bo. So I do have pizza in the fridge, so I'm gonna warm up some pizza. Hey, Brangus, I'm so thankful that you were able to hang out and make it to the end also. Pizza. Thank you, Sakia. I really appreciate you popping in. Anna, if you're still here, I appreciate you popping in and listening to the story of the road to the city of Oz. Tinsel puns are funny. I want to spoon you and then fork you all knife. Always good times. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. Rafa, that's funny. That is punny. I could just imagine Frank L. Baum just sitting there, like looking through his kitchen. Oh, colander. Oh, there's a sieve over there. Red or blue is live. Red or blue it is. Yeah, we can go and see Rob. We can go and see Rob. And I super appreciate everybody joining me tonight. I'm sorry if my voice isn't matching up quite yet. I'll try and fix that for next time. But remember, everybody, to always go out and get everything that you set out to get. Don't let anything stop you. And always do it through Peace, Love, and Pokemon because it takes $0 to be a good person. With that, I want to give a special shout out thanks to Brangus McGee. I did receive a package here. We are going to look through it on Thursday. Raphilosophy has a package coming for us as well. And we are going to be back on Thursday to build more of that Bulbasaur. And I'll see what I can do to find some things to open as well. Claire, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for being here. And let's go ahead and grab Rob's link and let's go and see our good friend Rob. Good old red or blue. Ginormous Bulby, right? It might as well be half a life-size Bulbasaur. That's what we're calling it. All right. There we are. Appreciate that, Rafa. I'm just working on getting his link to his live directly. He's still live. I mean, he was live before I even got off of work. So I know that man must be tired. Open it up, X Inferno. Mega Evolutions ETB bonus prize. Let's go. All right, y'all. Appreciate you being here. There it is. Appreciate you, Alice. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great rest of your night, everybody, and we will see you up on Thursday. Let's go raid our good friend Rob. And Alice, I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your night, y'all. I will see you around.